G'day, Barnaby.
Okay, guys.
Once a titan of conservative politics, Barnaby Joyce now looking isolated.
I'm just wondering how you can possibly win the next election and get this net zero, dead, buried and cremated.
Laura, okay, well, Laura, I'll answer that question.
Or you just shout from the sidelines from opposition.
As the party he once led met in Canberra without him, Joyce continued his personal crusade against the net zero climate target.
This is absurd. It makes no difference to the climate whatsoever.
Are we all?
Bringing him headlong into conflict with his nominal party leader.
It's great to sit there and beat your chest and say no. That's the easiest thing to do in politics. The hardest thing is to say what's the alternative and to have a credible alternative.
With Parliament resuming for the first time since news broke of his possible defection to One Nation, Barnaby Joyce is trying to straddle every fence in the paddock. He's not in the party room because he's not recontesting his seat, even as his party debates the very thing he says is animating his desire to leave.
If we're going to say no, what are we going to? What are we going to do? That's what the Australian people expect of a party that is a party of government. And I get that takes time, but I'd rather do it right.
Would you describe One Nation as a party of protest?
Yes.
The Coalition's ongoing civil war on climate is far from resolved. And while it generates plenty of headlines and drama, it is increasingly worrying big business, which is urging the Coalition to stay the course.
Our message fundamentally, in terms of the transition to net zero, is very clear. We're looking for certainty. Certainty gives business the confidence that it needs to invest, knowing what the settings are, knowing what the supports will be, knowing where government will pull levers and where it won't.
The visible coalition dysfunction would matter less to business if there wasn't so much at stake, particularly on matters like environmental law reform, which the government is making its #1 legislative priority before the end of the year. If Environment Minister Murray Watt can't land a deal with the coalition in the Senate, his alternative will be the Greens, which worries miners.
We need the parties of government to come together and pass this legislation. That is the way that we can go about delivering the longevity that these reforms require.
The government's proposed nature laws and its plan to establish an independent protection agency is a classic political trade-off between development and the environment. Murray Watt insists he's still talking to all sides, though he's getting plenty of political heat from the Greens.
My question is to the Minister for the Environment, not the Minister for Mining.
Thank you. I appreciate the question from the Senator for Senator for South Australia. It's been at least a few months since you've brought some sort of species into this parliament as part of a stunt, so it can't be too far away.
The amount of times that I've heard the so-called Environment Minister talk about delivering for business makes me feel ill.
There's not much in there really about protecting the environment in detail. And so we have to work out how it all fits together with the EPBC Act, and we want to get a balanced outcome.
Behind the scenes, there's still a strong sense that a deal can be done. Today, the government released another tranche of draft legislation to key stakeholders, including conservation and business interests. That includes a big stick national interest measure that would allow the minister to fast-track renewables and housing projects. There's also a plan to curb lawfare challenges by opponents of big projects. While these measures are making Green groups nervous, the government insists that only be used in rare cases.
I know it suits the Greens political party's political ends to treat this as a binary issue where you can only choose between the environment or homes. You can choose between the environment or renewable energy.
Order. Aside from the environmental reforms, the government's parliamentary agenda is looking thin, with some struggling to come to terms with the Prime Minister's absence.
Call the Prime Minister, the acting Prime Minister with arrangements.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I inform the House that the Prime Minister will be absent from question time this week as he is attending ASEAN, the East Asian Summit and APEC.
Which is leaving the opposition with few lines of attack. But it did target the government over reports in 9 newspapers that the administrator of the CFMEU has been hampered by a lack of investigative capacity.
Will the Minister finally deregister the CFMEU as the Coalition has called for? Or is the only thing off the table this government's courage to stand up to corrupt criminal unions that bankroll the Labor Party.
We take it seriously. We want to see a construction industry free from corruption. We are dedicated to the task.
In the end, today's sitting week has started like so many of them have before, with Barnaby Joyce stealing the limelight. Though for once, a Labor backbencher gave him some of his own medicine, reprising the time he waved a lump of coal in the chamber.
Speaker, this is solar. Don't be afraid, don't be scared, it won't hurt you. It's solar, built and installed by the hard-working Australians that live and work in the electorates of those opposite.
Senator Bridget McKenzie was in the party room today as the Nationals discussed their net zero policy. Bridget McKenzie, welcome to 7:30.
Great to be with you, Sarah.
Yesterday, your colleague, Senator Matt Canavan, made it very clear that his review will recommend dropping net zero. Why weren't the Nationals able to announce that today?
Well, Sarah, we've been really clear that we are going through a process as a party. We're not going to be rushed to a decision. But the reality is that, as I've always said, net zero is not net zero cost, and the whole world is waking up to that reality. And here in Australia, we need to make sure that that cost is evenly shared. Right now, it is regional Australia and our industries that are bearing the economic, social and environmental cost of Labor's approach. And globally, we are doing more heavy lifting per capita than most. So
that's a long list of reasons why you are going to drop it. So what's actually left to discuss inside the Nationals?
Sarah, it's a long list of reasons why the way Labor has approached emissions reduction in this country is significantly impacting some industries more than others and some communities more than others. So that is the sad reality. And what we've seen, Sarah, is 8,000 jobs walk offshore from our heavy industries, another 8,000 on life support with government subsidies, and $3 billion walk out the door just this year alone to keep our heavy industrial base on shore.
All right, let me come back to that.
That should actually be a concern for everybody.
Let me come back to the question. Matt Canavan said that there was great unity in the party room today. Does that mean that everybody in the National Party room supports dropping net zero?
Well, there's great unity in the National party room about continuing to fight for our communities and industries. That
wasn't the question, Bridget McKenzie.
We are on the front line. Sarah, our communities are on the front line of caring and conserving the environment. We feel the impacts of changes to the environment and changes to climate more severely than any listeners to your program that aren't in rural and regional communities. And we have to consider the sustainability of the environment more than most Australians because our livelihoods depend on it and our lives. So we are very conscious of making sure an emissions reduction scheme works for everybody in our country, not just some. And as we've seen, communities bearing economic, social, environmental
You've just said that. Is there a unified position on net zero in the Nationals or not? That is the question.
We haven't made a decision yet, Sarah. Our Federal Council is coming to Canberra this weekend. They will be debating that topic, and that is our membership base and our political parties in each state. So it would be preemptive for the party room to make a decision before Federal Council. But Matt and Ross obviously presented the work that they're going through and undertaking on our behalf to the party room today. And we're going to continue an open discussion as a room to come to a decision in due course.
Are you nervous about the strain that announcing a policy to drop net zero will put on the coalition, given they're far from unified on this position? The Liberals,
I think the National Party needs to fight for the millions of Australians that we represent. And I think it is not our job to ensure that the Liberal Party can win seats in capital cities. That is their role. Our role is to stand up for our communities. We've been doing it for over 100 years. We're going to continue that fight and not take a backward step.
Does that mean
no one's suggesting that we should actually sacrifice our people, our community and their future for the coalition.
Does that
because
mean
that's not our job?
Does that mean that at some stage the issue of net zero could cause a rupture in the coalition?
Well, obviously I hope not, Sarah. But at the end of the day, we've got a job to do here in Canberra, and we're going to continue to do that. People expect us to do that. And we haven't made a decision yet, but we're not going to take a backward step in standing up for our people and our communities.
I hope not. I'm quoting you there. I hope not. Sounds like it's a possibility that you are contemplating and something you're prepared to accept.
I'm not going to deal in hypotheticals. You and I have been in this game for too long to do that. Let's the process take place. We're going through in quite a methodical way. Federal Council's meeting this weekend. Matt and Ross are undergoing a piece of work. They've briefed the party room today, obviously, and we'll continue with our discussions and come to a position in due course.
Is there a sense now, if you come to that decision to go against net zero, it will look like you are bowing to the demands of a renegade MP, Barnaby Joyce?
Not at all, Sarah. As I have said often, as many National Party MPs and senators have made the case over recent years, the way the Labor Party at a state and federal level is rolling out their aggressive emissions reduction targets is impacting the economic, social and environmental future
let me ask you another.
Regional communities. And no one
you've
wants
said
to
that.
listen.
No, they do.
We've heard, Sarah.
They do, and you've said it once already.
So put that on the record.
All right, and you have. So let me ask you another question about Barnaby Joyce. He said today that he's not going to resolve his position this year. That is, whether he remains in the National Party. Is that fair to his colleagues to prolong his destabilisation of the National Party?
Well, you've made a lot of assumptions in that question, Sarah, so let's deal with the facts. He hasn't resigned from the National Party.
But he said today he won't resolve the position this year. The question is the prolonged destabilisation, is it fair to you?
So, Sarah, he hasn't resigned from the National Party. He is taking a break from the party room, like our current Deputy Leader, Kevin Hogan, did, like Darren Chester did, Barry O'Sullivan, etc. This is not unusual for this to be the case. And the facts remain that Barnaby, as Deputy Prime Minister, Minister and Senate Leader, has made a significant contribution, and his legacy is significant, and the party itself has given him the greatest opportunity to achieve a lot in those roles. And so I'm absolutely confident he'll be considering all of that over coming months, but it's not unusual for this to occur, and he hasn't resigned from the party. So
you're fine with him. You're fine with him conducting a kind of parallel life in the media, not working inside the party room behind closed doors like you and your colleagues do.
Well, as I said, Sarah, it's not an unusual situation. Colleagues like Kevin Hogan, like Darren Chester, Barry O'Sullivan and others over the years have taken quite significant periods outside of the party room, and that has not been met with the media wildfire that Barnaby's decision has. But, you know, he's made it clear that he wants some time to consider his future, and that's completely reasonable.
I want to ask you a question briefly about aviation. Are you confident that Rex's new owners will continue flying all the regional routes, regional and rural routes?
Well, these are the sorts of guarantees that I've been seeking from Minister King since the announcement. The fact is $160 million has been put towards securing a deal. And we don't have any guarantee whether all of those routes will be maintained, and regional connectivity for so many communities across the country will be maintained. We don't just want a single operator. Rex also performed a critical role to provide much needed competition into regional capitals, which drove the price down, obviously, with Qantas, which was useful and necessary. So the Labor Party needs to let regional communities know that those routes are guaranteed and that the deal that's being offered will secure regional aviation services for regional communities well into the future.
Bridget McKenzie, thank you very much indeed.
Always.